Hello everyone, and welcome back to CryptoCadet Academy. Today's lesson is going to be part one of a series we'll be doing on currency conversion in Solidity. What we're going to be talking about, just as a brief overview of the entire series for this, is first we're going to go over rate conversion, or what I call simple conversion. This is where you have instances where you have, say, an ERC20 contract and you want to allow people to exchange the native token. Let's say, for example, Ethereum for your token in this contract, and they are going to have to pay a certain amount and they'll get a certain amount back in your token depending on the rate. Now that's a simple conversion. That's not something where you might see too much in real life instances, but we're going to be working through some pretty crucial elements to Solidity where we're going to use those as building blocks when it comes to the next steps to that, which is multiple currency exchange, which when I say that, I mean, let's say you want to give your holders or your buyers, your users, options in terms of what tokens that they want to exchange. That can get complicated when the decimals may differ. As we all know, Ethereum, for example, has 18 decimals, whereas your stable coins like USDT have 6. And a pretty easy mistake to make is if you are trying to build these contracts and you forget the decimal conversion, it can get pretty ugly pretty fast in terms of when you're then trying to debug what went wrong in terms of the conversions and stuff like that. And then the last part is going to be about Chainlink Price Aggregator. We're going to, in this lesson, use Chainlink's Price Aggregator to, we're going to use Chainlink's feed in order to basically tell us what the price would be of a certain currency that we want to use, and use that directly in our contract. As a reminder, if you are following along at home, you can find all of the source code on our GitHub at CryptoCadet Academy. Now let's jump into the code. So if you're following along and you download it, we do have a few contracts that will have automatically ERC20 context, pretty much your standard stuff here. Now what we're trying to do with this contract is basically we want to put together a simple ERC20. And what this ERC20 is going to do is when we deploy it, it's going to have an initial supply, and we're going to set a rate, say 100. And let's designate an owner wallet. Last thing we need is this interface. And I'll explain a little bit more what this does in a second when we build our constructor. But basically, it's just saying this variable is of type ERC20. And what you're going to learn about interfaces, basically these types that start with I, just by its naming convention, what it's saying is any function that I want to call using this type should be available to me. It should be something that if the contract calls, it's not going to shoot back an error or anything like that. Let's name it. And then let's say 4 million. 4 million Ether. And what Ether is, I know a lot of people get confused by this, but all that means, let's just make sure my decimals are good. Yeah, it's 4 million. All this means is add 18 decimals. So if you're on Polygon or Binance, don't freak out. It means the same thing. Basically, writing it out like this would be the exact same as if we did something like times 10 to the 18th power, because it's 18 decimals. So it's the exact same thing. Next, we want owner wallet. Okay, now basically what this line of code is doing is when we deploy this ERC20 contract, it's going to have an address given to it. What it's basically saying is cast this address, that is the token contract, to this, it's type IERC20, meaning all of the functions that exist in IERC20, if we check them out, all of these functions will be available to it. So this total supply, balance of, transfer, allowance, approve, that's what your interfaces do. And we're gonna have a whole lesson on that, and I'll be able to link to this one. But that's basically what you're doing whenever you cast it to this type IERC20. Now let's mint to the owner wallet, the initial supply. What's that saying? Oh. Don't forget your semicolons. And that's good for the constructor. Now we can add a set function too, just because it's good practice. Okay, and what this require statement is just saying is that the msg.sender has to be the owner wallet. It's kind of a simple way. If you've ever seen the modifier only owner, it's something like that. And the rate would be the rate. Now this contract's only going to have one function, and we're going to call that the exchange function. And what we'll have that do is we'll make it external, we'll make it payable because it's going to accept ETH or whatever native token that you're using. Amount must equal msg.value, or assign the msg.value sent to that. We are going to take the amount that was sent, multiply it by the rate, we are going to transfer the amount of ETH to the owner wallet, And this next line is going to take some explanation. You are going to take this token variable and call transfer from, which, because it's an ERC20, remember, we can call on any function that's available to that interface. We're going to transfer from msg.sender.total. Now, be very careful with this. If we were to run exchange, this would come up with an error. Does anyone know why? If you do, either put it in the chat in our Discord or in the comment section if you're following along on YouTube. But basically, I'm going to show you in a second why this would fail when we deploy it. But for now, this is good. Let's go ahead and compile it. Let's go ahead and deploy it. Remix VM is fine. Owner wallet is this one. Deploy. Okay. Now let's switch wallets. And let's try to exchange. This is one of my favorite tools. I'll show you guys. ETH converter. I think it's .com. Yep. ETHconverter.com. If you've never been here, it just breaks down very simple decimals for you, which I struggle with. Let's say I just want to do, no, that's too much. 5, do 5. Because I'm sending 5 ETH. So let's put it here. And let's exchange. Okay, so did you see that? You have an error. ERC20 insufficient allowance. So what did we do wrong for that not to work? Let's look at the code. What it's doing is, okay, so we've got an address that is sending value. And what it's saying is, okay, multiply that amount times the rate and then send the owner, transfer that amount to the owner. And then in turn, we are transferring from the owner wallet to the sender this total. So one thing about transfer from that you need to understand is that transfer from kind of works like this. Your contract is the intermediary, and you don't want your intermediaries to just be able to go in and take money out of your wallet without you knowing. If this didn't fail, basically what I would have just coded was something that would just take these tokens just directly out of my wallet. And that's definitely not what you want, right? Transfer from is a pretty powerful function for those who don't know how to use it. So if you figured out why this doesn't work, good job. What we need to do is we actually need to add another line of code. And it's going to be this internal approve function. And what you'll see is that when we call this approve function, it takes 3 parameters: the owner, the spender, and the amount. So what that looks like then is owner wallet, the spender is address this, and the amount is the total. And now if we do this, the token transfer from should work. So let's go ahead and recompile and redeploy. Okay, let's switch to our second address. Let's send 5. And exchange. Let's clear this real quick. And exchange. Okay, and it worked. Just in case, let's just check the balance to make sure that it worked. So let's check the balance. Okay, and the number was initially 4 million. Now that number is this number minus 500, basically. All right, and that's it. So we went over, this was a pretty simple contract. However, we went over a lot of pretty complex concepts when it comes to Solidity. So definitely pat yourself on the back. And if this video was helpful for you, please give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.